Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Tyler Jones and Glen Willis. We're recording on a Monday night after the Hawks. I wouldn't say they won the lottery, but they didn't lose, and that the Kings pick didn't jump into the top four, and so uh, the Hawks will have the number 13 overall pick. Any thoughts on the lottery process there?
Um, if you're a Jazz fan, it's pretty brutal. But like, this is kind of a point I wanted to bring up. Um, if you trade your all-star talent, there's no guarantee that you'll be that good. You'll find a basketball player that good ever again, or that you'll build your team up to be that level of contender, the way the Jazz were just what 3, 4 years ago. They were a consistent 50-win basketball team with Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. And like Gobert and Mitchell are still well, Gobert's still all defensive caliber player, and Mitchell's still all NBA caliber. Meanwhile, the Jazz, I mean, you look at their roster, like the young talent is just not there. Like they have no singular foundational piece or even secondary foundational piece to build a real NBA team with, let alone a title contender. And you have to, and it back, and so my point is like for the fans that think, yeah, the Hawks should trade Trey, they can do that, and they might get value for it because at the time people were talking about the Jazz got incredible value for Gobert and Mitchell. What what
What
did
did
they
they get him?
actually get? What they got Laurie Markkinen, who was a throw-in. They didn't realize Laurie was even that good. Colin Sexton, both fine players. Like Laurie's made an All-Star team, but their team is a train wreck, and they purposely like they went out of their way to tank for this draft, and they ended up going fifth in a one player draft. Really, like we thought it was deeper than it was, but this is probably more of a one elite talent in Cooper Flag, and the rest are like they're going to have to be developed similar way that Ricochet has to be developed. Like it's just the reality of the NBA now with rookies. So I think I would pump the brakes about any of this, trade talk because uh, Hawks trade. I'm like, how they scoring points? I don't know. I don't know how fans could watch the playoffs and the play-in particular, where the Hawks played those two games and just saw how nobody could do anything of substance on the offensive side of the floor outside of Trey Young. Couldn't do a single thing, not a single basketball player. Whether they were veterans in Karis LeVert, whether they young guys in Dyson Daniels, they couldn't do a single thing against quality NBA defenders in the highest pressure points in the game because they don't have the talent. Or not to say Dyson can't get there, but Karis, like, he's just not that level of NBA player against elite competition. And so like I would just be careful about trading Trey when there's no guarantee you're going to get another Trey Young. I mean,
Here's something.
if you're a Hawks fan who's like legitimately watched the Hawks before Trey Young was a thing, you would know there's no guarantee you will ever get a franchise caliber basketball player for your play for your team ever. Like the Hawks, it's been since Dominique Wilkins. The Hawks have had somebody as good as Trey Young. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. Well, here's something I don't think Hawks fans know. I had someone on Blue Sky ask me today. Yeah, I get Trey Young's passing, but what else is he good at? And it was. I mean, I want to take the question seriously. And I mean, the person wasn't like mean or whatever. Here's what I don't think Hawks fans know, unless you go if you know how to go use the NBA stats and kind of filter down. After the trade deadline, the Hawks were sixth in offensive rating, fifth in true shooting percentage, first in 3-point shooting, and first in points in the paint. How the hell do you think the Hawks accomplished that?
People just memory hold because they only remember the last.
Oh, but
You know,
Trey wasn't efficient.
Trey's not
They were
efficient. Trey's
sixth
never
in
efficient.
offense after the they were sixth in offense after the trade deadline. First in points in the paint, first in 3-point percentage. He was. I mean, had no space, was double teamed all the freaking time, had two defenders on him all the time, and they still produced those offensive results. And to me, I think Trey deserves a ton of credit for that. And I know not everyone like goes and like works to figure, oh, were they during this stretch or how'd they do after, that's fine if that's not your thing to go look at those stats. I just wanted to pass that along because I think it's representative of all he gave the team post trade deadline.
And the shot quality was there the entire season. The Hawks were either one of the best or the best team in shot quality. They just had poor play finishers. They went, if we want to do a redux of what's going on, they went from a DeJounte Murray who, say what you will, when he played next to Trae Young, he was hyper efficient, spot up, catch and shoot 3-pointer. And they didn't necessarily replace that when they traded him for Dyson Daniels, who struggled in that regard. Zachary Richey shot was a mess to start the season. Jalen Johnson was fairly inconsistent as a jump shooter as well, though that's not that, but he was one of our better finishers. Capella struggled finishing. Uh, Zachary Richey struggled finishing. Dyson was figuring it out. He was getting better, but he didn't become most improved player, Dyson Daniels, until like a month or two into the season where he found his groove offensively, but that took time. It took time for Richey as well. Meanwhile, Trae Young was floating a lot of bad to mediocre lineups to give the Hawks a chance to win the game late. Like, and so like to me, I looked at I want to bring up the playoffs a little bit too. Unfortunately, it looked like Jason Tatum suffered a serious injury. Like,
Yep.
and it just goes to show basketball more than any other sport is fragile. You can do everything right, like the Boston Celtics, and it can end in 1 second. It could literally be over right there. Everything that you've built over the last decade, half decade. I'm Tatum's young enough; he should be able to recover, but that looked pretty bad. But my point is, if you look at the East, it's wide open. It's wide open. Cavaliers aren't as dominant as their net rating showed this year. The Hawks should not be scared of a Pacers team who are playing great basketball, but I think a Pacers team that the Hawks are comfortable against because they have more physicality than they do when they're healthy in a Kongwu and Jalen Johnson. Like they just have a bigger
Yeah.
front court and they're able to control stuff in ways that certain other teams can't because they lack physical size, like literal girth. Like a lot of teams employ skinnier bigs really struggle against the Hawks because they're counterintuitive. While they don't have elite wingspans, they have good wingspans, but they're great athletes and they're physically strong and they can go through opponents, finish through contact consistently in a Kongwu and Jalen, combined with on the defensive end, hold up in switches, actually excel switching while also keeping your big off the glass because they're too weak to get inside position against them. They're literally not strong enough. Doesn't matter that they're long. They're not strong enough to maintain position the way that Steven Adams and the Clint Capella can. The Hawks have real advantages against a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference. I'm of the opinion that this offseason, they have a real opportunity to build a true contender if they make the right moves. But, that goes in what they do in the draft and what they do at, president of basketball operations. But, like, my whole point is that I'm not giving up on Trae Young unless Trae says he wants out. Like until we reach that point,
For sure.
you just gotta take it to the end because like, okay, if you lose Trae in free agency, let's say that happens, or is it really any different than trading? Like, because you gain salary cap space because he makes so much money. Like there are with how the CBA is, like I think there's just levers to pull that are favorable for a team like the Hawks when you have guys on other talented players in the Congo, Jalen, Richey, and Dyson. Like to me, I'm like I want to add to that talent base and see if we can't push ourselves up to the front of the Eastern Conference.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I, I can't argue with any of that at all. Like that just makes perfect sense. Like the return wouldn't be there, and everything you said about like and for the Hawks, it's doubly so because they don't really control the next couple of first round picks that they have. So it's like it's just absolutely go in with Trey for sure. Do you have thoughts on the president of basketball operations search? Glenn, what do you think?
It's hard to know, like, where are they in the process? Are they close to making a decision or are they not? The combine's right here, and it's hard to know which reporting is real, which reporting isn't real. Yeah, I can usually get something behind the scenes, but they pretty. I told somebody it's like seems like they have like 8 deadbolts on the door. They're not letting like any intel out, any intel out. So I have no idea what they're going to do, which way they're going to go. You saw the reporting around wrestler having some interest, maybe in kind of bringing in a former agent or converting someone who's a current agent in, and things like that. And you see some of where there's some success there, and you see. But to me, I don't think it matters like if you were an agent or front office exec. Like, do you have the skill to make big moves happen? Do you have the skill to pull off substantial deals? Like, do you have a track record of that? Do you have the relationship communication? It's the soft skills is really what has to kind of show up in a role like this, in my view. And the other part is, based upon what we kind of, at least I don't know, kids would say vibes. What we hear is that this front office takes a collaborative approach. Like, there's a lot of people who have voices. I made the joke last time we recorded about it being like a conclave when there's time to make a pick. There's like 400 people, kind of weighing in on it, things like that. And I think that I would guess that they want someone who would buy into that, the style at which they kind of operate as an organization, which I support. So I mean, I'm kind of ready to find out. Like, it feels like. I guess I should say it'd be nice if they could make a decision now. You think they had enough time to work through the process. But I would also say making the right hire is more important than making a time bound hire. And so if they're still working through their process, and maybe they're trying to wait to see if a couple more teams fall out, maybe there's an assistant, or vice, POBO or something like that that's available here in the next few days. That might be something that's a part of this that we don't know about.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you mentioned like the fact that there's not a whole lot of intel. I think when you look at the intel that's out there, when you do an organized and thorough search for a position like this, if there are 50 people that you interview as sort of the first round, and you hear 6 names, like the 6 names that you hear are probably the most dark horse candidates. Like, it's not the Hawks leaking those 6 names. It's those 6 names saying, "Hey, look, I was a candidate," right? And not necessarily the persons themselves, but maybe like their representation, somebody who's trying to market them as, "Hey, this is somebody who can be a front office executive at some point." Like, that version of the leak is kind of a marketing for the candidates that really weren't serious candidates for this Hawks job, but they want it known that they're a candidate who's out there. So that, they might not get this job, but they might get another job, maybe not a president of basketball operations job, like, but they want it known that they are sort of available for hire and being considered by other teams. So, when you hear those 6 names, like the first, I don't know, 6, 8 names that came out, there were one or two that were like, they're way too qualified for this job. They're probably not going to take it. And then the rest were, no way. Like, no. That's not a serious candidate. So I think what you're hearing in terms of the intel is stuff from the very, very fringe. And it's probably a good sign for the Hawks that the middle of the search, the prime candidates, the people who might be under top consideration, you're probably not hearing who they are.
and I think in general, the point Glenn made about being able to make the big move is what they're looking for, is a guy who can sell a vision not only to the owner, but to the owner of another team, to players of other teams that you might potentially trade for. I said this on Blue Sky and on Twitter that Kevin Durant should want to play for the Hawks.
Sure.
Like, tail end of his career, desperately needs a playmaker to set him up, to take pressure off of him as an offensive engine, while giving him easy looks on offense, while being supported defensively in talents like in Jalen Johnson and Yeka Okongwu, something he literally has not had since he left Golden State. Like he has not had the type of front court talent that the Hawks have, who are established, good defensive players. I know people have opinions about Okongwu. He's a good defensive player. I don't want to have the argument, but like he's obviously good on defense. Jalen is obviously good on defense. Those are massive upgrades to what Kevin Durant has been playing with for the past 5 years of his career since he was like, I don't want to play with Jared Allen for some
Yeah,
reason.
that was
You know, basically since then it's been a dumpster fire. It's been like Nick Claxton save us, and it worked for like half a season. So like to me, what president of basketball operations, what that position is being able to have a conversation with Kevin Durant or Kevin Durant's agent and be like, look at this team. We have the best point of attack defender in the game. We have the best playmaker in the game. We've got we have a center that can make above the break 3-pointers, finish at the rim, pass. He's basically good at everything, offensively and defensively on Congo. Then we got Jalen Johnson, so that guess what? You don't have to play 100% of your minutes, having to be the guy on defense. Like Jalen can take real pressure off of you so that you can take it a little bit easier on defense, playing that little, we don't need you to do much because we got an elite talent on that side of the floor. And Jalen, and then also we got a Ricochet who will come off the bench. And so like maybe you can take, you're not playing 38, 39, 40 minutes because that's the only way we're going to win a game. You can play 30 and 32 and we can try to prolong your career. That's what to me, I'm like, and it can be other players than just Kevin Durant. I'm not saying the Hawks gotta trade for Kevin Durant, but I'm just saying the Hawks need to be in those conversations because Kevin Durant shouldn't cost that much to acquire this offseason relative to what he's been the last couple of years and relative to what the Suns, being deadlocked, basically. No team is going to trade elite young talent for Kevin Durant. Like, I just don't. Durant's just not at that stage of his career. It's probably just going to be picks, and the Hawks have picks to trade. And so, like, that's where you got to be able to have somebody with some clout in the league, whether it's with individual players or with their agents, to be like, hey, this Hawks situation is pretty good for you. And so that's where, to me, ultimately, that's why I feel like Ressler made these moves. It's why he wants an executive who's more established, who has more connections within the league in order to facilitate a move such as a Kevin Durant. That's just an example. I'm not saying the Hawks should do that. I think they should, but like trading for a Kevin Durant Kevin Durant has to first want to play for your team. If that doesn't, if we're not starting there, it's just not happening. That's just the caliber of basketball player Kevin Durant is. He has that political cachet in the league to dictate where he wants to play and finish his career with. So, like, to me, that's where it's like president of basketball operations, that's your job, to connect with a player like Kevin Durant and convince him, hey, this is a great situation in Atlanta. And then you can go on to trying to figure out what the Suns want and try not to give up, more than matching salary because,
I'll
even
give you
go ahead.
I'll give you another reason Kevin Durant should want to play with the Hawks. Do you want to guess what percentage of his minutes he played at center last year?
oh, that's brutal.
He played 25% of his minutes at center last year.
He did it
You
with the
can't be
Knicks.
doing that to him.
And it's not like they had like the 1 through 5 positional size to make that work either. Like they had nothing like that. That's
So
awful.
that's another. He's got to look around and go, "You signed me up for what?" I mean, and credit to him, he did what was asked of him. He stepped up. He tried to do the right thing for his team. He's always that kind of guy, right? It's always willing to do whatever. But I think Tyler nailed it. Like, when he looks at the next 2, 3 to 4 years, I need this kind of support. I need this kind of support. I need this kind of thing or these things around me. If I only need to play 65 games to be able to play until I'm 40, to have that be baked into the plan, I think that's what AD, I would guess, is kind of trying to make happen for himself.
Yeah, and so to kind of take it back to the president of basketball operations thing, it's like that's what they're looking for, right? That they're
Yeah,
looking for organizational ties. They're looking for someone to be essentially like an ombudsman for the team. Like the firing of Landry is not a change in the vision. The Hawks already know what they want. Like
Absolutely.
they whatever the plan was when Landry's here, it's still the same plan. That like that didn't change. What changed is they just want somebody who they have full faith in to carry them through the next steps that they already had in place. So it's just, they want somebody with the gravitas to like you said, for example, market themselves to Kevin Durant, market themselves to players who have enough clout to kind of pick their destination. The Hawks aren't as asset rich for whatever this next move is compared to San Antonio or Houston or OKC. But they do have some assets, and you know, part of what dictates, acquiring that one last top tier talented piece, to get that, to get the Hawks across the finish line, is marketability, relationships, and having whoever that player is kind of want to be here.
yeah.
Absolutely.
As you watch these playoffs, I always feel like it's a little bit of like truth serum of like, okay, here's what the real basketball is, right? We sat
Yep.
through 82 games of the regular season, but when you really want to know what teams, what coaches, what players think of, what's going to get a win when it matters most, you kind of see it in the playoffs, and things that happen in the regular season go by the wayside. What are the trends that kind of hit you and say, okay, yeah, this is what counts, this is what matters, this is what's going to stick for the next 5 or 10 years of NBA basketball? And in that vein, like at the same time, it's like it's really never been better than like what it is. Like at this, I in a way, it's a little bit disappointing because it seems like there's just so many injuries and so many players that look gassed, but like
Yeah.
the depth is still so deep at the top. Like these,
Yeah.
if you can't
Yeah,
play
so
at
for
this
me,
level, it comes out instantly. So it's,
yeah, so,
I don't know.
so for me,
What do
if
you
I
think
could,
the key trends are?
yeah, so for me, for Boston, I think they put themselves in a bad spot because ran the exact same team back. They run the exact same schemes on both ends of the court. So the
Yeah.
whole Eastern Conference has had all this time to like acclimate to that. I'm going to put a few defensive plays from tonight's game on Twitter and all that, but they knew exactly what was being run on every single possession. When they tried to run Pritchard off of two screens in the corner, they would top lock him, not let him get there. They blew everything up the Celtics were trying to run, right? Especially in the second half. And so I think this I expect the Celtics to make some changes. And then when you compare like the Pacers and Cleveland, Cleveland we've talked about before, like all of their offensive capability into their two guards, all their defensive capability to the front court. So if you get the ball out of the guard's hands, as much as I like Evan Mobley, he's not a playmaker, et cetera, et cetera. Where Indiana has an ultra offensively skilled four that can do whatever you need him to do when the ball is forced out of Tyrese's hands and all that. They got a five who could stretch the floor and shoot. He's not my favorite defensive center in the league, but the ball does not stick with him ever. He moves the ball, he makes the right play. And so that distribution of capability across 1 through 5, you don't see that in Cleveland. And that's why I said I thought Cleveland would have a hard time scaling what they did in the regular season, the postseason, when there's more time and space to game plan for the 2 or 3 things you need to do against them to make them have a tough time. With the Knicks, it's just sheer toughness and grit and just a commitment to executing. I mean, they play so hard and so physically. Jalen Brunson drives me crazy with the foul baiting, but on the other hand, you can't deny he's freaking awesome. I mean, he's awesome. And Towns is a good partner for him. But because they have so much defense at the 2 and the 3 and the 4, Towns doesn't have to play that much defense, right? He can, he can back it
Boston
down
didn't
on the
make him do anything tonight.
yeah, exactly. And if, in fact, they're in the first half, I was like, man, they're playing Towns and Mitchell Robinson together. They can't chase the Celtics off the 3 point line at all. They got that fixed, you know. But for me, it's just like veteran groups who know what the hell to do, know what the plan is, are focused on the plan, not out going on doing their own things like Jalen Green in Houston. As a young guy, I don't want to really pick on him. That's just an example of what it looks like for young people having their first entrance into the playoffs, not really knowing what it's all about. And you look at Knicks, you look at those teams, and and that's what you see. You look at OKC secondary ball handling and creation, not there. And that's being choked out of them. I like some of the stuff Tyler put out on Twitter and Blue Sky about SGA. You watch
He's
Ant
just not a
play,
point guard.
right?
He's just
Yeah,
not a
right now
point
you
guard.
watch Ant play and you watch SGA play, and you're like, SGA's gonna win the MVP. But when you watch them play right now, it's like, wow, one of them is obviously better than the other, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously better than the other. Then Denver, you got guys like just willing to take up, like when Aaron Gordon has to take an open shot, no hesitation. Okay, all right. He made a game time one at the buzzer. He had the air ball rebound put back. So veteran teams who have the experience to know this is the plan. We're going to stay in the plan. We're going to execute the plan. We're not going to go off and do our own thing. We're not going to add the, we're not going to, whatever, do improvisation. Those are the teams that do well, and it takes balance of offensive capability, defensive capability across your lineups. You can't have it all backed into a couple positions here, a couple positions there. I think that's what I'm learning from this playoffs right now.
Glenn, to bounce off your point, like I was pointing this out, even though the Thunder won, all the times Case and Wallace was passing up the open three-pointer. All the
Yep.
time, some random OKC Thunder player would get the ball behind the three-point line and not shoot the ball. They just wouldn't shoot it. Meanwhile, Aaron Gordon, no hesitation. At the same time, Christian Braun to start the game was hesitating on his threes, and it was bogging the offense down to the point the Nuggets only scored 8 points in that first quarter, in large part because I thought Braun wasn't aggressive enough. He picked it up in the second quarter, and it wasn't an issue going forward. But like that was where the Nuggets really lost the game. Um, and then you look at the Knicks, right? Everybody's paying the Mikal Bridges trade for all of Mikal Bridges' faults. The man can get to his mid range if you let him. If you let him dribble hard into the middle of the floor and then take that pull up mid ranger, he can get there. That's like a skill and a talent that he has, and that relieves so much pressure off of Jalen Brunson combined with OG Anunoby. Like, I mean, OG like is just destroying teams.
He's incredible.
He
He is so keyed in.
OG. I stand with
What was
this.
that trade? What was that trade?
Don't understand why the
No.
Hawks weren't all in on trading for OG instead of Pascal. He was clearly the Raptors' best player. I didn't understand it then when they had the opportunity to trade for OG Anunoby, and they're like, no, we want Pascal because he's the bigger name. He's the all-star talent. I didn't understand it. The Knicks got OG. They're only paying him $40 million. He's one of the best two-way players in the game of basketball. Like, period.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable defender. Makes every jumper he takes. Doesn't hold the ball. Great processor. Great team player. The type of player you need to win a title. The Knicks, while they're super top heavy and they're one injury away from being a disaster, they make the trade. They make the bold trade to trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. Carl Towns has the shooting to play with Mitchell Robinson in ways that Julius Randle doesn't.
That's
So
right.
all of a sudden now you can play Mitchell Robinson and with another big, and you're cooking teams on. You're good on defense because you size wins, but that size has to be able to shoot and have skill at some level. That's that's where the Capella Okongwu could never play. The inability for those two to play together on the floor kind of tanked any like higher ceiling upside this Hawks team had. So I think going forward, it's important that if the Hawks want to compete at the highest levels, they add center talent that is able to play next to a concrete. That's the important thing because you got to be able to you got to want to have the option to play super big, especially against these bigger teams. Like you got to have that. You got to have that in your back pocket. I'm not saying you do it all the time. I'm not saying you do it every game, but it's just something like I need this option to go towards. And like with Okongwu's growth this season offensively, that's something that you can find from a center. Steven Adams has shown pretty consistently to be able to support, you know, other center type players because of his spatial awareness on the offense and defensive sides of the floor. So like that's an option for the Hawks. Like
Yeah, I like
guys,
I like the bridge I like the Bridges stuff because the other thing that it elicits for me is we talked about this before too is Kyle Bridges knows what he's good at. He knows what he's not good at. He leans into what he's good at. That's what veteran players do, right? He knows what he can do, and he goes and seeks opportunities to do those things. And that's just something like Tyler's example in Oklahoma City. Jason Wallace needs to let it freaking fly, man. Let that
Good
he's got to
shooter.
step up and shoot the
Good
ball.
shooter.
Aaron Gordon, I think, shot 32%, maybe something like that this year. Ball finds at the end of the game. Oh well, there's 2 seconds on the clock. I'm taking this shot, and he's got, the calm. He's collected and putting that ball up, and we'll live with the result of it. And that's the difference between a team that has won a championship like Denver has in the recent years, and OKC, who was like, this is the first time I've ever had this kind of pressure. And it's interesting to watch Jokic because. I mean, the NBA gods kind of like to deal with Zubac in round one and Hartenstein in round he's wearing down a little bit, um,
Oh.
I still don't put it past them to figure it out, but man, it's diminishing Denver's chance to go really, really far in my mind, and they have to find and see to Tyler's point, Denver doesn't have another center they can play. Jokic has to play like 41, and so it's workload plus those two matchups specifically are kind of getting to him. So that's interesting.
And like Jokic is working his butt off on defense too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's what's frustrating me about the talk on. I'm like, guys, he's being asked to literally be the best player on both sides of the floor for his team for like what 95% of the minutes of a 48-minute NBA game. Like no nobody in NBA, only one other player did that, and that was LeBron James. Like, and so like but that's the company Jokic keeps. And so it's 2-2. We'll see if Jokic has a couple games in him because what even though they lost, like I still don't like the process of what OKC is doing on offensive
That's
end.
right. Yeah, I
They've got to
just
play a lot fast. They have to just play faster. They have to get the ball up the floor. They've got to go. If they see a crease, drive hard to the rim, force force
yeah,
Denver in rotations, and then kick it out. Like stop with all this isolation game. Like SGA is trying to play like he's Jalen Brunson, but his teammates aren't that level of
yeah.
decision makers and off the ball. Like they're just not that caliber
Well,
of
they're just
basketball.
not threats either. Like when
That
Dort and Holmgren are out there, they're not really being taken seriously on offense. Like when Holmgren is out there with Hartenstein,
yeah,
the spacing is like Dort, Holmgren, uh, Hartenstein together. Like Denver's putting three people in the paint like permanently. Like they don't have to leave the paint. Like they're not taking it all that seriously. When Holmgren's not the center on offense, like they're bringing in somebody off Dort, they're bringing in somebody off Holmgren, and the paint is really crowded, and it's really hard to believe in OKC's offensive process when it looks like that.
and
yeah,
that's
and
where
they're doing.
That's Jokic's advantage. Like they're doing that because they know if we play 1 second of NBA basketball without two real bigs on a Jokic will clean up on the glass and we will lose by 15 points. Like that's just the reality. That is just the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is, and Kevin, I want to get your couple observations subject Tyler and I, but the teams that commit to rebounding, like Denver works their butt off rebounding on defense. I mean, all five guys, the Knicks do that. You see that the Pacers do that, and it makes a difference. It makes a big difference. Besides what we talked about, Kevin, what's jumping out to you?
The one thing that kind of stands out, it's not necessarily a trend, but like I just think like every player that played in the Olympics last summer just looks completely washed.
Yeah,
Like Derek White tonight. Like my God, like that guy was unrecognizable to the player he was 2 years ago when what was that the run where they got to the finals against Golden State? Like Derek White was unbelievable 2 years ago. And then tonight when he was trying to guard Brunson, it was just like he's got nothing. Like just one half of screen is taking him off of Brunson and he's out of the play. It's like so just physically, it seems like a ton of the players who played in the Olympics are having trouble. Um, you know, so that's a big one to me, and I think it's especially significant for Boston. Like separate from what happened to Tatum tonight, like it was hard to see Boston doing this for two more series after this one. Like they should be a title favorite just on paper. You look at the personnel and the players they have and the things that they can do, like but that's not the same Derek White. That's not the same Drew Holiday. Um, They just don't look the way individually that they did with some of their pieces a couple of years ago, and that goes across the league. Like so many of the players who were in the Olympics, like either just are injured at this point, have already got knocked out, um, and so I think that opens it up. Like this is an unbelievable opportunity for Indiana. Like
Yeah.
they, the door is open. Like Indiana Pacers in the finals, that could happen. Indiana Pacers NBA champions, like that could happen. Like they've
They absolutely.
and
Pacers
people
can
don't take Andrew Nemhard seriously enough. He is a real freaking two-way player in the vein of some of the best NBA stoppers. Like he's not a big, he's more like Dyson in that he can just be a person who just takes a guard out. Like that's it. Like he's unbelievable. So I mean that's why I think like some of these teams like New York and Indiana, like they didn't have some of these Olympians. For somebody like New York, it's interesting because usually it's Tibbs has already ground his players into dust by this point in the season, but none of his players were in the Olympics, so it's almost like they're fresher than some of these guys that they're usually more tired than. Like OG looks like he is peaking at the right time. Like he looks like A plus fresh, and so. I just think that some of these fresher teams that maybe haven't had deep playoff runs and haven't had their guys in the Olympics, I think it's wide open. And with the team in the West like OKC, who should be the prohibitive favorite, like they haven't shown enough on offense. And so to me, it just seems like wide open. And it might be somebody from the East who jumps in here and wins the NBA Finals, some crazy team that was 75 to 1 at the start of the playoffs, 200 to 1 at the start of the playoffs. Like nobody believed in them, but they might get it done. It just seems very wide open.
Yeah, for where we are now, as we kind of wrap up here, um, flat as flat as I can remember being in a long time. There's not one team that's like just
Yes.
in a different tier. They're all in the same tier right now, it seems like.
Yep. All right. Well, I appreciate you jumping in, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Good
Thanks
night, Bob.
all. Night, Bob.
Right, Bob.